Alright guys, so here we're taking a look at Learning Target 1.1 under functions. So with these functions right now we're dealing with finding the input or the output depending on what you're given. Okay, so you're going to be given one of those and have to find the other. Okay, one thing to make sure we understand is that function notation. Okay. So the first thing to mention is that these letters out front here are just the names of the function. So if we have multiple ones, we have different letters, so we distinguish, f of x is linear, g of x is exponential in this case. So we can use pretty much any letter here, and they're not variables. We represent the input with the variable that's inside the parentheses. Okay, it doesn't have to be x, though generally it is. Those are our inputs, which we also see in the pattern, in the function. Okay, the outputs are represented by the whole piece. Okay, those are our outputs. So, if I tell you f of x equals 3, that means 3 is an output. If I were to make a point, it would be the y value, the output value. Okay. If I have something like g of the number on the inside equals something, then that's the input that we're looking at. Okay. Let's say instead of 3, let's say that this was 4. Okay. And let's say that g of 4 equals 3. That means at this point, 4, 3 is what that represents. Okay? That with an input of 4, I have an output of 3. Input of 4, output of 3. So on a table, generally the input is on that left column, and the output is on the right column. Or if we did them horizontally, whichever way they're written. Input would be just the variable, output would be the g or the f of x or of the variable. Okay? And in this situation, it'd be 4, 3 or 4, 3. And they'd be connected. Okay? So that's what we're dealing with here. So, what we've got here is 4 problems. First, I've got an f of 1, an f of 3, then an f of x equals negative 10, and f of x equals negative 2. Okay, so here I'm given the x, or the inputs, and I want to find their outputs, their corresponding outputs. So if I go to f of 1, I look at the x, because that 1 replaces the x, my 1's right there. Okay, well what's connected to the 1? That's where we look at the output, because that's what we want. We're given an input, we want to find the output. So it's negative 8. So that would be negative 8. Okay, an input of 3, go along here, 3, and so 3 right here gives me an output of negative 4. Okay, because they're connected, an input and an output. Alright, so like number 2, f of negative 2. Negative 2 is right here, its output is also negative 2. Okay, f of 2, in this function, 2 is right there, for the input, the output is also 2. Okay, if we look down here, f of negative 1. Negative 1's right here, so its output is 256. Okay, f of negative 5. Negative 5's right there, an output of 16. Okay, so try the rest on your own for those A's and B's. Okay, or you can see how to do C and D and then try it all that way. Okay, so C and D. If we look at this, okay, now we see f of x equals negative 10. Notice we don't know what x is, but we know what f of x is. Okay, that's giving us the output. Okay, so if it were g of x, it would say g of x, or p of t, or whatever. That would match up. Okay, so I go to negative 10. Well, what's the x value for this output? The input is 0, so my answer is 0. Because those are connected. Okay. So f of x equals negative 2. Here's negative 2. What's my input? My input's 4, so my x value is 4. Okay, f of x equals 0. Go along here. 0 is right here. My input is also 0. And f of x equals 4. Here's 4. My input is also 4. Oops, wrong color. Okay, so as you can see, we're just given one of these, finding what it's connected to on the other side. So f of x equals 128. Go down to f of x, there's 128. Its x variable or value is -2. F of x equals 32. There's 32. Its x value is -4. Okay, so what you should try doing if you haven't yet, you should try all the rest of these. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Try them on your own first, and then watch to see what you get. All right. Well, let's take a look at it now. All right. So, let's see, we're on number 4, aren't we? Here we go. So, f of -1, here's -1, so it's going to be equal to 0. F of 2, right here, so it's equal to 1. Input of 2, output of 1. Okay, f of x equals 1, so if I look at this, I should see that I've got 3 options here, don't I? Okay, so an output of 1 gives me an input of -2, 0, or 2. And that's all right to do. It's still a function. It's when we have when we have one input going to multiple outputs, that's when it's bad. Okay. So f of x equals 0. So 1, 0, 2, 0. So -1 and 1 on that one. That one was kind of crazy, wasn't it? Okay, number 5. F of -6. -6 is right there. Goes to 13. F of -5, right here, goes to 26. F of x equals 13. So 13 goes back to -6, right, because they're connected. And if we know 26, I know that that's going to have to be -5 based off that other piece. And I guess I was supposed to write these in red, wasn't I? Okay, f of 0 right here to 45. F of 4 right here to 49. F of x equals 47 right here, goes back to 2 for x. And 48 goes back to 3 for x. Okay. Number 7, f of 1 right here, goes to 1. F of 3 goes to 1.5. F of x equals 1.25. We take it back to x equals 2. And 0.75 goes back to 0. G of 0, okay, notice it's G now instead of F. Still works the same. Would be 81. And G of 20 would be 1. G of x equals 9, so that's the output. It gives us an input of 10. G of x equals 3, range of 3 gives us a domain of 15. Okay, G of -4, so our input is -4, goes to an output of 1. G of -1, our independent variable, gives us a dependent number of 64. Going from an output 16 to -2, the input, and G of x equals 4 goes to -3. And the last one, G of 1 goes to 2, and G of 3 goes to 4. G of x equals 1, so it goes back to 0, and G of x equals 5, going back to 4. And that's all there is to it when you're dealing with the tables, okay? And again, these are horizontal tables, and we also do, vertical tables, but it's the same thing. It's just horizontal, they're just connected across instead of up and down, like on the other ones, okay? And you could flip it. Sometimes the input could be the opposite one, so pay attention to how it's labeled, and if it's not labeled, then you assume the input's on the left or on the top. Alright guys, there we go, functions learning target in 1.1.